traffic on my way home in LA, my Spotify DJ played a song for me that I had never heard before. It was a blend of electronic dance music and something right out of the shtetl from which my ancestors fled to America. For a few minutes, while crawling down Wilshire Boulevard, I was entranced by the music and by the Hebrew words which came after a significant amount of yai-dai-dais. Machshavot tovot, diburim tovim. Good thoughts, good speech. When I got home, I cycled back through the playlist from the drive and added it to my liked songs. I have listened to this song at least once a week since I discovered it, but until quite recently, I knew nothing about where it came from. But a couple of weeks ago, I was browsing Israeli news on the internet when I came across a headline from the television network Reshet 13. Chotze Zhanerim u'Migzarim, crossing genres and sectors. There was a video attached to the report, so I decided to watch it. And within seconds of skipping the ad, I heard a familiar melody. It was the song from my drive. The story that followed of how a Chabad nigun from the 19th century transformed into a modern hit in Israel excited and inspired me, and I will now share it with you. But first, the melody goes something like this. And pay attention, I will ask you to sing later. Ay, 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 ay. The story goes something like this. Around 80 years ago, there was an effort to collect as many Hasidic nigunim as possible and notate them musically in a book. Thus, Sefer HaNigunim, the Book of Nigunim, was born. Of the collection, our nigun is number 73. In the report from Reshet 13, Mendy Bloy, a nigun researcher and podcast host, that is his title, explains that though the nigun was officially numbered and marked as special for Shabbat and Yom Tov, there is no information about its provenance, but that it probably came from the mid-19th century. And though we don't know its precise origin, we do know how it spread. At some point in the 1930s, the melody made its way to a young Chassid in Romania by the name of Yisroel Dubroskin. Yisroel was the son of a rabbi, and he was known as a gifted student and by a certain nigun that he was fond of singing. But when he was only 10 years old, he was deported and sent to the Nazi concentration camps. Those who were with him during the years of the Holocaust remembered him for the nigun he sang, because even at the darkest time for Jews in recent memory, when so many lost hope and faith, Yisroel shared the melody, and he added words that affirmed his belief and uplifted those around him. He chose the words of Psalm 139, the verses 7 and 8, and it went like this. Anai lech meruchecha ve'ana mipanecha evrach im esak shamayim sham ata ve'atzia sheol hineka. Where can I escape from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I descend to Sheol, you are there too. We can understand why a young religious boy going through the horrors of the Holocaust would choose these words. They gave him hope, and he spread it to his fellow prisoners, and it helped them all keep their emunah, their trust in God, even in the darkest times. Tragically, despite surviving the Holocaust, Yisroel was killed in 1956 in a terrorist attack that took place on the outskirts of his new home in Israel, in the town of Kfar Chabad. We, the collective Jewish world, lost Yisroel when he was only 21 years old, but we did not lose his song. His fervor for the melody and his belief in the words that he applied to it were so strong that they kept the nigun going for generations to come. And so, over 50 years after Yisroel's tragic death, popular Israeli singer Hanan Ben Ari recorded a new cover of the Nigun with the words that Yisroel had selected. The song appeared on an album from a group called Tzom, an organization in Israel that is dedicated to preserving and sharing Nigunim. And they're doing a great job, because from that point in 2016, the melody began to slowly permeate into the Israeli subconscious. And then, in 2021, a Hasidic singer named Moti Weiss carried the Nigun with him when he traveled in the Philippines. But Moti sang his own words. Machshavot tovot, ay, 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 diburim tovim, ay, 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 ay. Good thoughts, good speech. Eventually, Weiss recorded his rendition as a single, and it has since swept across Israel and the Jewish world, generating covers and remixes and an astounding number of plays globally and in my car. The rest of the story of the Nigun is still being written, and you are now all a part of it. We are all carriers of the melody, and we are the beneficiaries of the message. Especially on Kol Nidre, as we look backwards over our lives in order to move forward, we must take this song and its words into our hearts. Machshavot tovot, diburim tovim. Good thoughts, good speech. In our Jewish tradition, we learn that our thoughts and words hold practical and spiritual weight. In fact, this lesson is one of the very first ideas we encounter, sourcing back to the very beginning of the universe. We learn from the third verse in the Torah, Vayomer Elohim yehi or, vayehi or. God said, let there be light, and there was light. The tools which God used to form and shape our universe were words and speech. But then only a little later, we also learn the gravity of our thoughts. Vayar Adonai ki rabba ra'ata adam ba'aretz, v'chol yetzer machshavot libo, rak ra kol hayom. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that all the impulse of the thoughts of his heart were only evil continually. This is in Noah's Ark, the very beginning. God decided to destroy humanity, not merely because of the actions they had committed, but because their thoughts were only ever evil. God knew then, as we do now, that thoughts become speech, and speech become actions. And so if we only ever think bad thoughts, we have no future. The rabbis of our tradition also knew this. There is a story in the Talmud about two sages, one named Pinchas and the other Shmuel. Pinchas had suffered the loss of a close relative and was sitting in mourning when Shmuel came to visit and offer his condolences. When Shmuel saw that Pinchas had long nails, he asked why Pinchas had not cut them. Pinchas took offense, and he replied, "If your relative had died, would you take the matter so lightly?" Shortly after, Shmuel suffered the death of a relative, and when Pinchas came to offer his condolences, Shmuel threw his own fingernails into Pinchas's face, saying, "Don't you know a covenant is made with the lips?" The rabbis of the Talmud believed that words literally had the power to influence the future. And I think that on some level, we believe that too. On Yom Kippur, we spend 25 hours of fasting in deep contemplation about the past, and yet this holiday is about securing a future. Not long ago, we heard the words of Kol Nidre. We repeated 3 times this legal formula: all vows and prohibitions and oaths and consecrations made by definite terms and by ambiguous phrasing that we may vow or swear or prohibit upon ourselves from this Yom Kippur until the next, we repudiate them. All of them are undone, struck, Canceled, null and void. They have no force. They are not in effect. Our vows are not vows, and our prohibitions are not prohibitions, and our oaths are not oaths. When we call out this plea, it is as if we are asking, please, God, don't let our minds and our mouths make life harder for us. Don't let our thoughts turn into speech and then to deeds from which we will again have to atone. Kol Nidre, as we recite it, is about freedom. It is a moment that guarantees that we maintain the ability to do and be anything. We are freed in advance of the things we may promise to ourselves in moments of anger or fear or relief or passion. We will no longer be locked into those states or the identities they produce. We do not have to be those people. We can be better. We can remain free to change and adapt when patterns we fall into no longer serve us. We can make different choices. We can set better intentions. We can think better thoughts. We can speak better words. But it's hard. In our world today, we are surrounded by machshavot and diburim me'od lo tovim that are very much not good. Constantly on our phones, our televisions, radios, on telephone poles, in our neighbors' yards, we are inundated with negative thoughts and negative speech. And all too often, we see them become negative actions. We watch angry protesters destroy public property. We see enraged students turn places of learning into fortresses of hate and exclusion. We witness people who drink hate from the internet, spew it back out into the world through gun violence. We are constantly exposed to other people's negativity, and it affects us. And sometimes, without even being conscious of it, they turn our hopes into fears and our dreams into nightmares. They make us think bad thoughts, and they give us reason to want to speak bad words. Sometimes the world around us feels like a bottomless downward spiral, but it doesn't have to be that way for us. We can change the momentum that would pull us down and cause us to either shrink away from the world or make it worse. It is not easy. But just as God used words to create the universe, we must also use them to create a new reality for ourselves. We can use words to lift us out of the depths and back towards the real eternal cycle of relationship between God and the Jewish people. And we can sing them. Machshavot tovot, ay, 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 diburim tovim, ay, 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 ay. When I first heard this melody and these words, they erased my frustration at the traffic around me, and they helped me gain a new perspective on my experience. And I think that right now, we're all stuck in some kind of traffic. And I know we could use some new perspective. And so as we move into Yom Kippur, beyond Yom Kippur, and into this new year, let us meditate on this nigun of unknown origin that has uplifted the Psalms and brought hope to the people, that survived the Holocaust and terror in Israel, that has traveled around the Jewish world and even through the Philippines. Let us affix it in our hearts and our minds, and let us plant it so that it takes root in our souls. When we do this, the harshness of the cold world around us will no longer be able to pull us down, for this nigun will raise us back up. There are so many blessings that I want for us this year. But if I can only choose one for tonight, it is this. Machshavot tovot, diburim tovim. May you only know good thoughts and good speech. Let us sing these words together. Machshavot tovot kulam, ay, 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 tovim. Ay, 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 ay. May this be God's will.